Yeah, that's a bummer. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where, unfortunately, yes, the Seattle Kraken lose 6-4 to the Edmonton Oilers in what was one of the most important games remaining this season. And I only say was because it's no longer one of the remaining games. And although, because of its importance, you'd think that it would be more frustrating or, I don't know, anger inducing that they end up losing this game, honestly, I really don't know what more to say about it other than it was a bummer. Usually, there's at least some kind of story or some kind of takeaway to have from a game, whether that's positive that the Kraken are winning and doing things well, or if they lost, that it's a game they have no business losing, like the Sharks, or one that they lose because of special teams or specific things that you can take out and look to improve in the future. But there just really wasn't that with this game. Honestly, the Kraken played a pretty good game, and throughout most of it had the flow of the game in their direction and even outshot the Oilers pretty significantly. Yeah, goaltending was definitely the issue, but there's some mitigating circumstances there that definitely did not go in Seattle's favor. And while they did make some mistakes that the Oilers are just good enough to take advantage of, the Oilers made plenty of mistakes as well, and the Kraken got some great chances and were right in this game until the final few minutes. Well, maybe the last 8 or 9 minutes when Edmonton took the 3-goal lead. So in the end, I'm kind of left in this weird place where I'm, again, really bummed out, for lack of a better word, that, is kosher for YouTube, that the Kraken lost this game, but also kind of have this feeling that if they continue to play this way the rest of the season, they're going to win the vast majority of the games they have left, especially with the quality of opponents they have left for most of the rest of the games. The next few may be excluded from that. So it's kind of I don't know. Yeah, it's just weird. Now, with all that having been said, I definitely understand that there's going to be a fair number of people who are more the glass half empty, more pessimistic types, especially when the Kraken have now lost 4 of their last 5 games, one of them in overtime, but they've lost 4 of the last 5, and are definitely on one of these bad streaks with this team that has been pretty streaky all season long. And definitely a part of the season where you don't want to be in a bit of a rut like the Kraken seem to be in. Again, I do think that the Kraken played in this game much better than they have in any of the last few games they played, even including the win in San Jose. So that's a good sign. But I can understand the frustration and maybe some hands hovering above the panic button. I'm not quite there yet, as really what this loss does for the Kraken is probably means that they end up as a wild card team rather than one of the top 3 in the Pacific Division, and that does put them in the bracket with the Central teams, which means they'd probably have to go through the Avs at some point in the playoffs. And, well, if you're hoping for a deep run, going through the Avs is going to be a tough out. But other than that fact of this game making it more likely the Kraken end up as a wildcard team rather than a top 3 Pacific team, I'm still not panicked that they're going to end up out of the playoffs, as they'd still have to get passed by the Jets, who are in pretty much complete freefall, as well as one of either the Flames or Nashville Predators, who are somehow still in this after having sold at the deadline. That having been said, while the Kraken, like we've mentioned a number of times, have one of the easiest remaining schedules, Predators, who the Kraken are about to go play twice in Nashville here after a game in Dallas, so those now become pretty important games. But even outside of those games against the Kraken, they have among the hardest remaining schedules, not only playing most of their games remaining against current playoff teams, but playing them against some of the best teams in the NHL. So even if the Kraken don't necessarily have the best end of the season and take care of business in all of those games against bad teams, the Predators are probably going to find a way to stumble their way out of this run that they've made at the wild card because of their strength of schedule. And then as for the Flames, they too have a fairly easy schedule, but the Kraken still have a pretty healthy lead there, so I don't think it's a huge concern quite yet. Now, if the Kraken continue to lose game after game, yes, it's still possible we could get there, but it's more likely than not that the Flames are probably on the outside looking in at this point. So again, at least for me anyway, even though the Kraken have had a non-ideal stretch here after that 5-game winning streak, again, a reminder that they could just go on another winning streak like that one at moment's notice, I'm not quite ready to press that panic button just yet. If they do lose in Dallas and then don't come away with at least 2 points in those 2 games in Nashville, then we can start talking about a little bit more of a panic, even with some really bad teams left on the schedule. But it's still looking pretty good at this point if we're being realistic. With that out of the way, though, and I did think it was important to have that context as to where things actually stand right now and looking over the rest of the season, as I know there's probably some people smacking that panic button already. Unfortunately, we probably should move on and get to this game that does not go the Kraken way. And starts going not the Kraken way pretty early on, as responding to a great scoring opportunity the Kraken have early on here, a great feed from McCann for a tip right in front of the net by Eberle, is saved by Skinner, and then right back down towards the Kraken net. It's Vander Kane who just kind of skates in and from pretty well outside still near the top of the faceoff circle, fires off a shot which is contested. And honestly, this is just one Grubauer has to have a save on. It ends up squeaking through him, though, either armpit or 5-hole. I don't really know which. It hardly matters, as it does get across the goal line and gives the Oilers that early lead. And even beyond this, it was a game, this one obviously being the first shot on goal going in past him, and a save he would have made in San Jose the way he was playing in that game. This whole night for Grubauer looked really off. He just wasn't able to control the puck, and didn't seem like he was seeing it as well, and certainly didn't have as much control of rebounds or preventing rebounds as he was in San Jose. In fact, I don't even know if I mentioned this, but one of the parts of his game that was so good against the Sharks was that he just was not allowing rebounds. Just a complete sponge for the puck, making sure that it was frozen and there weren't any second chance opportunities for the Sharks. In this game, though, while none of those second chance opportunities end up costing him, there were a lot of pucks either dribbling out of him or bouncing off of him that you'd like to see him probably have a little bit more control over. And then, of course, this one that just straight up leaks through him. Of course, eventually we would find out why that might have been the case and why there was this dramatic downturn to his play in this game versus the last one, as the pucks might not have been the only thing leaking through Grubauer. But anyway, we didn't know that at the time, and this is one that you'd like to see your goaltender stop. The good news, at least for the Kraken, is that they don't allow the Oilers to create any momentum off of this goal, partially because the Oilers don't allow themselves to create any momentum, sending the Kraken to the power play almost immediately afterwards. A power play for the Kraken that actually looked pretty dangerous. They got a number of shots and a couple pretty good chances to score, especially towards the middle of the power play, but just aren't able to quite find a way past Skinner. And then, unfortunately, after that's killed off, they send the Oilers to the power play, which the Kraken actually kill off really well, hardly letting the Oilers get set up in the offensive zone at all and clearing the puck pretty consistently, and even a couple of times carrying it down into the Oilers' end of the ice. One of those times being right before this power play comes to an end, and with that puck in the Oilers' end of the ice, eventually Beniers is able to get a hold of it right near the net, and while he doesn't really have any chance to get a shot off, he does get it up to Dunn in the high slot. Dunn fires off the shot, and it goes off something in front, which turns out we would find out later it's Schwartz, and into the net to tie the game at 1. It's a quick response to that kill, so the Kraken coming right off the kill, come down and tie the game at 1 with the Dunn shot, which of course does also now increase Dunn's still franchise record point streak to 12 games. Originally, this was also awarded as his 14th goal of the season, but it turns out it did go off of Schwartz in front, so Schwartz eventually gets that goal, and actually, weirdly enough, ends up getting one of the official stars of the game with that goal, even though he wasn't actually awarded it officially for another 20 minutes. But still, following the Kraken goal, though, they too are not able to create any momentum out of it, and while they don't send the opposing team to a power play like the Oilers did, play does pretty much just even out and kind of die down a bit, where it had been a very fast-paced start to this game, and it just kind of evens out and calms down for a while. But eventually, as we get towards the back half of the first, the Kraken start to build some momentum. They're building momentum, getting some shots, some offensive zone time, and then against the flow of play back the other way, there's one defensive breakdown as both defenders, this being the Borgen and Alexiak pair, get caught together in the same corner on the same guy for whatever reason. This was not Connor McDavid, so I don't know why both of them had to be on one player. Might have been Draisaitl, so maybe it makes sense if that's the case. Either way, the puck gets out of that corner past both Kraken defensemen, and eventually up to, I think it was Nugent Hopkins, who passes it net front to the only guy in front of Grubauer, which is, of course, Kyler Yamamoto, and he just taps it in through the 5-hole of Grubauer. Not a whole lot Grubauer could do about this other than slide in front and hope that the puck hits him. It doesn't, and the Kraken defensive blunder ends up in the back of their net, And just like that, it's 2-1, where it would stay to the first intermission. So obviously not an ideal end to the first period, but hey, you're still only down 1 goal after 20 minutes, plenty of time to come back, and the Kraken have done a pretty good job of shutting down McDavid at this point, as he's really not played much of a factor in the game. Which all comes to an end 43 seconds into the second period, as the Kraken just can't get the puck out of their defensive end, and while it doesn't find any Kraken sticks, it does eventually find McDavid's, and then he gets just a nice cross-crease pass across to Evander Kane. Well, everyone's paying attention to McDavid, Kane's forgotten about, and he's able to get the clean shot off, which Grubauer, again, hardly has much of a chance on getting from one side to the other that quickly. And just like that, it's 3-1 Oilers, and for Kane, his second of the game. Again, not the ideal way to start a period for now the second period in a row, and now you are down 2 goals to the Oilers, and McDavid's starting to get involved. But at least the good news for the Kraken still is that, outside of maybe the Vancouver Canucks, no team blows leads quite like the Oilers do. And sure enough, when it comes to defensive blunders, the Oilers, a couple minutes later, say 2 can play at that game, as at their end of the ice, Eberle somehow maintains possession of the puck with a couple of Oilers players whacking at it, and then once he gets clear possession of it, the Oilers just part the seas for their net. Eberle just kind of looks around confused and says, all right, and walks right up to the net, fires off the shot, and even at that, it's still one that Skinner probably should have had a save on here, but it leaks through him, gets across the goal line, and gives the Kraken their 3rd goal of the game, pulling them right back to within 1. Again, though, if you're the Oilers on this one, for how disappointing it might be that this one somehow leaks through Skinner and gets the Kraken that 3rd goal, it's even more confusing how Eberle's able to just skate right up to the net and get that clean shot off from in tight in the first place, as he was kind of having some trouble getting a clean handle on the puck, just kind of pirouetting around the face-off dot, as one of the Oilers players kind of just tries to do a drive-by to take the puck from Eberle, and while he gets a piece of it, he doesn't get enough to actually take it away from Eberle. Eventually, Eberle gets it back, but even at that point, there's still a player between him and Skinner and then the net, which, of all players, is the captain in Connor McDavid. And while McDavid could have still come up to challenge this shot from Eberle or go for a block, he just kind of backs out of the way to cover the back door where there weren't any Kraken players even on that side of the ice. So I don't really even know what McDavid was doing there, but he just gets out of Eberle's way and Eberle ends up scoring. So I guess thanks. Unfortunately for the Kraken, though, a few minutes later, McDavid would make up for that mistake with his second primary assist of the game, as once again the Kraken in their defensive end, I wouldn't necessarily call it a defensive blunder, but they just cannot get clear possession of the puck and get it clear of their defensive end. And eventually it's McDavid who does get to a puck first that's kind of between him and one of the Kraken defenders, smacks it up into the slot where Hyman's waiting, and Hyman hits it right past Jones and into the back of the net with not really much anything Jones can do about it to give the Oilers back that 2-goal lead. Yes, I do mean Martin Jones. This was actually the first shot on Jones, so both Grubauer and Jones allowing goals on the first shots against them. Again, Jones really didn't have much of a chance on this one, considering the opportunity that McDavid gives Hyman here, just a high-danger play that scores. But Jones just came into the game probably like a minute before this, because Grubauer ends up leaving. Originally, it seemed like he may have pulled something. It was listed originally as a lower body injury, doubtful to return. He didn't return, so the doubtful part's correct. But as we'd find out later, it was a non-COVID illness. And it's hard to say how, no one knows for sure other than, I guess, Grubauer and probably some other people in the locker room, how Grubauer was feeling before the game, whether or not he was feeling sick beforehand and things just got worse, or he tried to fight through it and just couldn't. After the game, Hackstall did kind of make it sound like Grubauer was, at least to him, feeling fine at the start of the game, and then just it became unmanageable eventually, which caused him to leave and not come back. And if a player comes out due to illness, it's got to be pretty bad, and it was clear even the couple of shifts before Grubauer ends up leaving that he was not feeling very comfortable, and there was a couple times there where he's just kind of bent over in that position we all know, unfortunately, all too well. So, yeah, hopefully whatever it was that was bugging him, he can recover from in the next couple of days and get back out there for the Kraken. but it certainly would explain some of those issues he was having as far as controlling the puck, controlling rebounds, having vision and movement in the crease. It would explain a lot of those things, like we talked about on that first goal. Once again, though, after another Edmonton goal, the Kraken press right back, trying to respond, and in what turned out to be a wildly entertaining second period, regardless of the outcome of the game. Not long after, this second period really, I guess, had everything for everybody, as there is a fight here between Hayden and Costin, which does kind of turn out to be more of a Beyblade duel than an actual hockey fight. Unfortunately, that does end with Hayden going down to the ice, and I think gets his leg caught under him as he would end up exiting and not returning. So that's certainly not ideal from a Kraken perspective, as John Hayden was actually having a pretty good game up until that point. Either way, not long after that fight, the Kraken do eventually respond on just a beautiful passing play, a transition through the neutral zone, as it's eventually Alexiak who carries it into the offensive end, drops it off for Gord as he continues to go deeper. Gord then finds Bjorkstrand on the far side, who's kind of been left alone on the far side of the slot. Bjorkstrand fires off the shot and puts it top corner and in to get the Kraken back to within one. It's 4-3. And the Kraken, once again, going into another intermission, are down just one, as this game is still easily within reach. And actually, the Kraken did press pretty well towards the end of the second period and nearly tied it up before that intermission. But even though they don't, they do carry that momentum into the start of the third. Again, though, they're just not able to score, and eventually they do send the Oilers to the power play on, it's a too many men call, but it's a pretty obvious too many men call. This isn't just nitpicking a bad line change or anything like that. This was legitimately the Kraken almost had 6 guys across the blue line in the offensive end before they realized they had too many guys out there. And the Oilers, you can't send them to the power play with a 1-goal lead in a third period. However, the Kraken mercifully are able to kill that one off. And then not only that, but go to the power play themselves not long after, which they nearly score on, but aren't able to, and immediately following the power play, it's a rush chance down the other way as the guy's right out of the box. He gets the pass across to Kane. Kane fires off the shot, and it's one that, again, Jones probably has to have, but it is a perfect shot into the top corner, and it gives Kane the hat trick and the Oilers the 5-3 lead. So, unfortunately, it is the truth that Kane's a better hockey player than he is a human being. Plus, unfortunately, this goal about halfway through the third period also kind of seemed to take the wind out of the Kraken's sails, as they're really not able to get another good offensive press in until the final few minutes of the game, by which point they're now down 6-3 as the Oilers would get another power play with 6 or 7 minutes left, which they eventually, after having a couple killed off pretty well by the Kraken, the best power play unit in the league, eventually scores, and it's McDavid who puts one in past Jones that, again, you could say that Kane shot was just a great shot by Kane, and sure, it's probably a play that shouldn't have been allowed by the Kraken defensively anyway, but even if you do want to say that was a better shot and really not on Jones all that much, this one is definitely one Jones needed to have, as it just kind of squeaks right under his pad through the 5-hole on a pretty tight angle shot by McDavid. Just McDavid kind of doing it all himself on the power play, but still one that Jones probably should have had. The Kraken do end up in the final minute, actually the final couple of minutes, with the net empty. They have a pretty good press, eventually getting one back with a very nice passing play. Alexiak getting it down behind the net to Geekie. Geekie getting a pass up into the slot to Tolvanen, and Tolvanen goes skate to stick, puts it into the net to at least get the Kraken to within 2 with about 50 seconds left. And they did actually almost make it a 1-goal game a little bit after that, but it is too little too late, and we do finish off with that 6-4 score. So, unfortunately for the Kraken, although it was a very important game at home, and although for the most part they played it pretty well and massively outshot the Oilers, I think it was 37-23 in shots on goal, if memory serves, and as far as advanced stats, expected goals regardless of where you look say that the Kraken had the edge there. They did have those couple of defensive blunders, and if you have defensive blunders or can't clear your defensive end, especially when McDavid's out on the ice, the Oilers are probably going to find the back of the net. And while the Kraken certainly had their chances afforded to them by the Oilers defense, they just weren't able to take advantage of as many of them. And there's also the whole problem of losing two players throughout this game. Two of them, actually both of them, in the second period, right around halfway through the game, losing your starting goaltender for one, and then losing a good fourth line kind of grit guy in Hayden, who honestly was playing really well in this game, even outside of just being a fourth line player. And I mean, heck, if you're looking for positives from this game, not only did the Kraken play pretty well just in the flow of the game and offensive opportunities, they also drew exactly even in faceoffs won, which has continued to be a headache for the team throughout this entire season, going 33 to 33 there, so exactly 50%, which is a lot better than they've done in most games, even against some of the worst teams of the NHL. Plus, as far as the penalty kill is concerned, against the best power play the NHL has to offer, sure, they do go just 2 for 3 on the kill, killing off 2 of the penalties. But even on that third one that they allow, again, it was kind of a soft goal that Jones allows, and they were looking pretty good up until that point, which was still late in that power play. If they do continue to play the way they did in this game, and especially if they can clean up a couple of those issues in the defensive end, they're going to win the vast majority of these remaining games and have no problem making the playoffs. Of course, once you're in the playoffs, then, I mean, anything goes at that point. Just, you got to get there. And besides, while we're on that subject again, I will say that even regardless of what happens in these remaining 13 games, and even if the Kraken do find a way to just by some horrific, I don't know, anti-miracle disaster, I guess, they do find their way out of the playoffs, it is really nice to have these last few games of the season, this last home stretch, matter for something, which by this point last year, we were well into the point of the season where we were kind of hoping the Kraken could make it interesting, but lose most of their games to make their chances at that first overall pick a little bit better. Obviously, still hoping for playoffs and the best possible seed in said playoffs, but it is a refreshing change of pace from last year, if nothing else, to have every game this season mean something. As for the Kraken 3 stars, I do think we can find 3 stars here. It's not necessarily as clear as some other games as to which guy maybe goes where, but I think for me, the first star in this game, I think I'm going to go with Yanni Gourde. It's maybe a bit of an off-the-board pick. He doesn't score any of the 4 goals for the Kraken, but he was very good in the faceoff circle. In fact, give me a second here to look up. Yeah, he ends up winning 10 of the 14 faceoffs he takes, so great game in the faceoff dot for him, which, again, considering how that's gone for the Kraken as a team this season, is quite notable. Plus, he was, again, doing all the great Yanni Gourde things, a lot of those small things like great forechecking, back checking, and setting up plays. He does get an assist in this game, so he's at least on the score sheet as far as that's concerned. Second star, although, again, he was part of the defensive blunder that led to the second goal for the Oilers, he also was a big part of 2 of the goals for the Kraken, that being Jamie Alexiak with 2 assists in this game, and played pretty well outside of that one issue that he and Borgen had there defensively. And then the third star, I could go any number of ways with third star in this game, but I do think I'm going to end up giving it to Jaden Schwartz. He's the only Kraken player who got an official star, as he was the guy that got that first goal and re-tied the game, which would be the only time the Kraken were tied other than the very beginning. Either way, he does get that goal on the tip-in from that done shot and had a good game other than that. So, plus, again, and I've mentioned this before, he does kind of just seem like one of the most underrated or unsung heroes of this team. Really doing a lot for the Kraken, especially offensively, just doesn't quite always grab the attention in the same way like a Beniers or McCann or Eberle do. But Jaden Schwartz is just Mr. Steady and predictable when he's healthy, and has been an important part of this team, even if he doesn't always get mentioned the same amount as some other guys. Anyway, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If you disagree with me about, I guess, anything I've said here, the 3 stars, how you're feeling about the Kraken chance at the playoffs and the seeding in said playoffs, or just how we're feeling in general with a bit of a light stretch here, having lost 4 of those last 5 and definitely needing to get some wins back. Anyway, regardless of what the future holds for the Kraken, if you have made it to this point in this video, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy it, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that support the channel, so I appreciate you using them. Until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, bless, and go Kraken.